As we get into today's show, since 1972, Nebraska's Natural Resources Districts, or NRDs, have been planting trees and shrubs for windbreaks, erosion control, wildlife habitats, as well as many other purposes. This spring, the NRD Conservation Tree Program will be planting their 100th millionth tree soon. That totals approximately 50 trees for each Nebraskan. We recently had the opportunity to catch up with an NRD forester, that is Jay Seaton, to discuss this milestone and to learn more about how Nebraska's NRDs are working to improve the outdoors for Nebraskans. Well, let's talk about the tree programs that the NRDs offer. First, can you just give us an overview of that?
Absolutely. Every NRD across the state has a conservation seedling program. We generally start taking orders in November and usually end at about the 1st of March, and we take it for a variety of issues. It is all about doing conservation forestry out on the ground. So whether that be for windbreak habitat, or for windbreaks, shelter belts, snow belts, wildlife habitat, or just reforestation projects, the Conservation Seedling Project will have a species ready for you.
Big picture, why is that important?
Why is it important? Well, of course, with the growing differences in climate, with sandstorms, weather events being more and more spectacular, conservation is going to be more and more important out on the ground, and trees can address a number of those concerns that landowners or even just communities have. So it's always important to plant more and more trees to keep that canopy out on the ground.
Well, today we want to talk about developing a tree plan. So talk to me, what would a tree plan look like?
Tree plan will encompass just about anything you may have, whether that is timber stand improvement, wildlife habitat development, windbreaks, any kind of forestry project you may have. A plan can address that and address it in steps to help a landowner work through the process. Unfortunately, with forestry, there is no such thing as instant gratification. So it's a long, slow process. But if you have a plan in place with a dedicated natural resource or forester, it'll help you go through those steps and achieve your goals.
Right now, a lot of our viewers are producers in the thick of their growing season, might not be thinking about developing a tree plan, but maybe as they are doing a pass through a field, they might just start pondering that. Is there a particularly good time to think about developing one of those plans?
The old adage was 10 years ago was the best time to do it, but the next best time is now. And so even this time of year in the summer, when we're not necessarily thinking about planting, planning is a great thing to do. While the crops are growing, while maybe things are just a little bit slower, whether that be in the summer or throughout the year, it's a great time to start thinking ahead about going, what are my goals for my land? What do I want it to look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road? And we could start addressing those needs now, so you're not saying that, well, I should have done that 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are celebrating a big milestone when it comes to tree planting in the state. Mentioned that in the introduction, but when it comes to how many trees are being planted across the state, are we able to quantify that year to year at all?
Oh, absolutely. We are able to quantify that. We keep yearly records of how many trees are planted throughout each NRD. The NRDs just planted their 100th millionth tree in this state for conservation. And so it's a great time, and we're also celebrating our 50th anniversary as NRDs. So it's a great time to start thinking next year, what do I need to plant? Where do I need to plant it?
So that's talking about new trees, but there's also obviously a lot of trees that have been planted, and this spring and into the summer we've seen a lot of storms come through. For somebody who's had some damage on their property, on their trees, what are some of the things they should be considering? They
really need to start thinking that even though it is an older or established tree, maintenance never does end. I mean, it's just like any other natural resource. There's got to be constant involvement with the landowner. So when it comes to whether you need help assessing or anything else, contact your local NRD. There's also Nebraska Forest Service that has district foresters across the state that can help address that. And if need be, there's also a list through Nebraska Statewide Arboretum of a list of all the arborists across the state to help you address your specific tree needs.
You and I are sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska today having this conversation. Nebraska is a very different state from end to end, but generally, what kind of trees are good growing trees here in the state?
There is a wide variety of trees that we can plant across the state. Some like cottonwood, black walnut, and even some junipers that can be planted across the state. We have a wealth of variety when it comes to that. We are the tree planting state after all. Most NRDs offer anywhere from 40 to 80 different species, and a good place to look at those is nrdtrees.org.
Well, what else should people be considering? Here we are in the summer. What should they be thinking about when it comes to trees and NRDs?
Well, when they're starting to think about trees, now is a good time, especially if you own some forest ground or anything else, looking at the overall health of it, maybe addressing concerns you might have for the upcoming hunting season. Maybe there's some you want to thin or even be thinking about adding for the upcoming season. Or maybe it's just around the house and just landscaping, looking around and go, what tree would be perfect in that situation?
Let me ask you this too. When it comes to diseases, anything in particular we should be looking at that might make those trees vulnerable?
Right now, there's not a whole lot we're looking at. We are seeing some dieback in some different species. That's going to be year to year, of course, depending on the climate, drought, winter stress, that type of stuff. And so if you do see anything and you are concerned, you can contact your local Nebraska Forest Service district forester, or even your local extension agent can put you in touch with those people as well to maybe help you address those pest and disease problems. There's always going to be those that we look at and go, well, we need to take it to the next expert until we can pinpoint it. Specifically, is there any one thing to watch out for? No, not necessarily. But when we're thinking about planting trees, the big thing is plant diversity. We don't need to plant, nothing but one species. No, we've got a variety of species we can mix or match to meet your conservation needs. So always be thinking diversity.
Very insightful. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you coming on the program.
Appreciate it. Thank you.